once you do that, once you commit to sending so many military forces to the region, you kind of get into this momentum, policymakers. They can't just sort of press a button and send everyone home. They have to actually do something with all that military force. So the fact there's such a comprehensive military buildup edges us towards conflict, even if it's not something the US initially wanted.
Was one on podium team from curling team slid well finally 9 letters. Iran's foreign minister has said that a draft counter-proposal will be ready on his desk in the next few days to hand over to US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, while Donald Trump is weighing up limited military strikes on the region. The US president has built up a massive presence of naval forces in the Middle East, made up of aircraft carriers and other warships, stoking fears of imminent war. So what is the president's short and long-term thinking here when it comes to dealing with Iran's nuclear program? I'm pleased to say that Robert Pinfold, lecturer in defence studies at King's College London, an expert in territorial disputes and grand strategy, is here joining us on Times Radio. Robert, what do you think that this counter-proposal might contain?
Well, what's interesting is the time frame has gone down so quickly. Initially we heard that the Iranians would be getting back to the Americans within 2 weeks, whereas now it sounds like they're getting back to them in a matter of days. So this, I guess, is a product of the building momentum, the fact that we seem to be drifting towards war. We heard from Nicholas Hopton on the on your news brief just there that neither side wants a conflict, but both sides feel that there's room for maneuver, their chance to get out of an open conflict, that window's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So what we will hear or might see in that Iranian counter proposal is crucial. And this is not just about the nuclear program. I think it's important to note the issue here is that the Iranians want this to be just about the nuclear program. The Americans don't. They want this to be a deal that changes Iran's behavior in the entire region. So this wouldn't just be about nukes. This would also be about Iran's proxies, the so-called axis of resistance. It would be about Iran's ballistic missile program, which is something that Iran still continues to build up. So if this counter-proposal is just about freezing Iran's uranium enrichment, we're more likely to see America drift into at least a limited military strike. If it's something more comprehensive, there may be room to get an agreement, though may is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence because the gaps between both sides, from what we're hearing, is still very broad.
Yes, and I'm wondering if last time America, launched a strike against Iran, or at least it was Israel with American backing. It was very targeted at the nuclear programs. Do we know what the target might be if the US goes ahead with strikes?
Well, what we're hearing is that the US is not that interested in a limited campaign. Now, the fact that Trump has changed tack and suggested that this is an option could be a game changer. But what we've been hearing up until this point is that the US's focus would actually be on, if not regime change, dealing a real crippling, possibly even a death blow to the regime. So this would not be just about strikes, targeted strikes on nuclear sites, for example, with US stealth bombers, which is what we saw in the 12-day war in the middle of last year. This would be about striking Iran's command and control infrastructure, striking military installations. So it would be a comprehensive strike on not just Iran and its nuclear program, but Iran's military assets and possibly even Iran's political leadership. So this shift towards, in rhetoric, Trump's shift towards a limited strike suggests that we might actually see something similar to the 12-day war again. So that would be a game changer. And that suggests that Trump knows that the military pressure is building.
Yes. And how likely do you think strikes are going to be in the next few days?
Well, we really are at a critical period right now. As we heard before, this is the largest buildup of US military forces since 2003 in the region. And once you do that, once you commit to sending so many military forces to the region, you kind of get into this momentum, policymakers. They can't just sort of press a button and send everyone home. They have to actually do something with all that military force. So the fact there's such a comprehensive military buildup edges us towards conflict, even if it's not something the US initially wanted. So we're in a critical period now. The Iranians are talking about getting back to the Americans within a few days. But they might even need to get back to them sooner than that, because the momentum is clearly in the direction of conflict, whether that will be a limited strike, whether that will be a comprehensive 3-week campaign, which is what we're hearing, which is what we were hearing before. And that's still very much, I guess the only person who knows the answer to that is probably Donald Trump right now. But unfortunately, the momentum is tilting towards conflict.
And we all know that Donald Trump likes to present any sort of negotiation as a win for him and for America without losing any face. What could Iran offer America that would allow America to withdraw from doing any strikes and for Donald Trump to claim, maybe legitimately, that he's got a win out of Iran?
Well, this is the issue here, because there's been such a large-scale deployment of forces. Trump needs to get something better than just an okay deal. He needs to get a deal where he can say, I've committed this much military force and look what I can show you as a result. So an okay deal, as I mentioned previously, would be something that constrains Iran's uranium enrichment. But at this stage, when we're so far down this escalation ladder, when we're seeing so many US troops and general military forces in the region, it would probably have to be something better than that. It would have to be about, as I mentioned previously, changing Iran's relationship with its allies in the region, groups like Hezbollah, for example, the so-called Axis of Resistance. And it would also be about Iran agreeing to curtail the development of its ballistic missiles. This is what is really worrying Israel and the Gulf states at the moment. The fear that Iran is going to put all of its money, all of its military effort into increasing the number of ballistic missiles it has. So if the US strikes it, it might not win in a direct war with the US, but it can cause enough chaos that it can severely destabilize the region. That's what's worrying US allies in Western capitals at the moment, from Riyadh to Tel Aviv.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts and insight. That was Robert Pinfold, lecturer in defence studies at King's College London.